Hey guys, welcome to lesson 4 of the series. Today we're going to learn how to hold a pick properly, we're going to learn how to strum a guitar properly, and we're going to learn how to switch between chords so that by the end of the lesson you can do something like this. Let's get straight into it. So what is a pick? A pick is a flat tool that you can use to strum a guitar. They usually look like this or like this. This is a makeshift one. I don't recommend making your own, but yeah, you can use anything really. You could even use a coin, but you'd want to just buy some off Amazon. Now they can come in different sizes. I like Jazz 3 picks specifically, but you can get larger sizes when you begin as they're easier to use. Now they come in different materials. You can get wooden ones, you can get glass ones, you can get plastic ones, you can get all sorts, but when you're starting out, you want to get plastic picks. And yeah, I'll link some in the description that you can get. Sorry, I had to go away and moisturize my hands a bit. It's always that part here. But how do you hold a pick? A lot of the time I see people hold it like this with 2 fingers, or like this, or some weird thing. I don't know what people be doing these days, man. But this is how you hold a pick properly. You want to do a thumbs up, but leave your hand open a tiny bit, like you're trying to let water through. And then with the pick, you want to put on your first finger like that. Not at a right angle like this, but just here on top of this line. Oh, my phone battery. Don't die on me. Yeah. Okay, so like that. And then put your thumb on top. So you've got this general X type of shape. I'll do that again. Pick goes here, then thumb on top. You've got an X shape. Now, with the thumb, I'm putting this part of my thumb on it. So it looks like that at the end. If you have a bigger pick, it should look like this where you've got more pick to work with. But if you don't and you've got like a tiny pick like me, it's fine as long as you have enough to do what you need to do. I like tiny picks because I'm more accurate with them and I feel closer to the strings. But when you're beginning, I suggest getting a bigger pick. One that looks like this, that's not broken and chewed up. But if I had to hold this, it'd look like that. I've got a lot to work with and there's loads of flex to it. That's how you hold a pick properly. Not like this or that or at a right angle where the pick's in the same direction as your thumb, but like this. And you've got a general X shape. Cool, so let's get down to business. If you remember at the end of lesson 2, I said that there's an easier way to swap from E minor to E major. If you don't remember, then I'll play it right now. Since you know how to read E minor and E major now, I want you to practice switching between them. So E minor, then E major, E minor, E major. See if you can find a more efficient way to switch between them both. I'm not going to tell you how to, but if you figure it out before next lesson, then I'll be impressed. What's this more efficient way to switch from E minor to E major and vice versa? If you remember from lesson 3, I mentioned that it doesn't really matter what fingers you use for the chords as long as you're pressing down where the dots tell you to press down. For example, if E minor says I have to use my first and second finger on the second fret of the A and D string like this, I know it's 2 fingers and I've got 2 more that are free, so I could possibly use my middle finger and third finger instead. So it looks like this. And I've got my first finger free. Or I could even go further and use my third finger and pinky instead. So now I've got 2 fingers free. So I'll go back to the one where I started with my middle finger. If I use my middle finger on the second fret of the A string, and then my third finger on the second fret of the D string, I've got my first finger free. I'm still playing E minor because my fingers are on the correct dots, but now I've got my first finger free. And I know E major is just E minor, but with my first finger on fret 1 of the G string, the 3rd string. So to swap from E minor to E major really efficiently and a bit faster, you could just do that. E minor is like this, and then E major would be like this. Now before we go into larger chord jumps like this, I want you to get used to just switching from E minor to E major, and then your fingers just move about while you're doing it. If you don't have a pick and you're doing all of this with your thumb, that's fine. You can still practice switching chords with your thumb, but if you've got a pick, you want to make sure that you're not holding it too tight where it can barely move throughout your fingers, because if you are, it's probably going to sound like this, and that's not a nice sound. It's too punchy in your face. There's a time and place for it, but right now, no. So when you're holding the pick, just make sure you're not holding it too loose, just loose enough for the pick to kind of wobble about in your hand. So when you're going through the strings, you can see the pick kind of bend back and flex with the string, as opposed to just not move with the string at all, right? And yeah, if it's still hard, then just make sure that you have enough pick hanging out. If you've got a larger pick, again, it will be a lot easier, but the more you have hanging out, the easier it will be to just strum through the strings without catching your fingers or thumb on the strings. The last thing you can do is make sure that you're strumming at an angle. And by that I mean, normally when we play the pick's like flat, but if you twist the pick, so it's coming, like, say this is the string and the pick's coming, oh, it's so hard to like do on the camera. Yeah, so this is the string and the pick should look like this on the string. Not flat, but coming at an angle. So if you can see this, I'll try and like zoom in better. This is flat, but this will be at an angle. Flat, angle. At an angle, it just gives you a softer sound, and it glides through the strings a bit easier compared to when you do it flat. Now you know how to swap from E minor to E major. The reason we use different fingers sometimes is so that we can swap faster and we don't have to swap each finger just to get to the next chord. But what we can do is look at which dots that the chord shares. So for E minor and E, the two dots that they both share is the second fret of the A and D string. And I'll put a diagram here. Now, if we can put two fingers that can stay on those strings and have one finger free to just add that extra dot when we go into E, then it will just make switching the chord way easier, as opposed to doing this. The next two chords we're going to switch from are E minor and A major. For these two chords, just remember, if you have some big fingers, you can use one finger to kind of fret down two strings at the same time. But if you've got nice little fingers like me, not that big fingers aren't nice, but if you have little fingers like me, then you can just, use the tips of your fingers. So E minor and A, these are really nice chords because one, they're both on the second fret. You don't have to do that much moving. All we're really doing is playing one chord and dropping it down and adding one more finger. So E minor, that starts on the second fret of the A and D string, and we can use our first and second finger for it, like so. Now when we're moving to A, we know that the first dot it starts on is going to be on the D string on the second fret. So all you're really doing when you're switching is dropping your fingers down, like this. That is all. And then after that, because A has 3 dots, we're going to add our third finger to the second fret of the B string. So it looks like this. So from E minor to A, all you're doing is dropping 2 fingers down one string and adding your third finger. The last thing you just want to be careful with is making sure you're not strumming the E string when you're playing the A chord. You want to strum from the A string because there's an X on the low E string for this chord. So practice going from E minor to A. Pause the video now and just go through that, or E minor to E major. Just get used to switching fingers, dropping fingers, moving fingers, whatever you have to do. Just get comfortable with switching chords now. And just find easier ways to think about it, I guess. So E minor to A would be taking E minor, and all I'm doing is dropping it and adding a finger. That's how I used to think of it. So I wouldn't think of it as a completely different shape, but I'm still thinking E minor, drop down, add finger. And for E minor to E major, I'm just thinking E minor with a first finger on the first fret of the G string. Pause the video, practice that, and we're going to move to our last chord sequence, which will be E and A minor. Before we play these last two chords, I just want you to see if you can find any similarities between these two diagrams. I'll give you a few seconds. Correct. Both diagrams have the same shape. The only difference is they're on different strings. So E major would be here. And to get to A minor, all we're doing is dropping our fingers down one string like this. Remember what I said about not having your first finger or anything on the first fret over here or in the middle, but you want it just behind the fret. Fingers straight and curved, and make sure you're using your fingertips. Play each note one by one to make sure you're getting a clean sound out of the chord. And for A minor, just remember there's an X on the low E string, so we don't play that string. And just practice going between those two chords. The last thing I'd suggest is going in your app store and downloading a metronome app. You can just type in metronome and use any one that's there. That's free. I wouldn't pay for it personally, but I use this one, and you can use this to keep in time.
One, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Playing in time is super important. You don't want to be too fast or too slow, because if your rhythm's off, the song's gonna sound weird, right? So if I had a basic chord progression like E and A minor, which is what we've just learned, if I start playing fast and slow then fast, it's gonna sound like this. Doesn't sound too nice. Unless you like it, but that's a bit weird. Now, if I just keep a consistent rhythm throughout the whole thing, it's gonna sound nicer. I know what you're thinking. When am I gonna learn how to strum? We're gonna get to it. Just be patient. But what you can do with the metronome is pick a number. For now, let's just say 1. The metronome's gonna be like boof, 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 or 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. What you want to do is every time it says 1, play a chord. So for example, when it says 1, I'll play E major, and then the next time it says 1, I'm gonna play A minor. Something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. As long as you're playing exactly when the metronome's on the first beat, you're fine. If that's too easy for you, then you can speed it up and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if that's too easy, maybe pick numbers 1 and 3. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Or maybe 2 and 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. You can mix it up, but as long as you're playing in time with the metronome, you're fine. So on that app, all I did was go into the settings and I used option H for that little 1, 2, 3, 4 voice, but you don't have to do that. My favorite one is G because it's just a nice soft beat that's boof, 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 boof. Make sure you practice this with a metronome. This will help with your timing. And yeah, with the chord progressions we've learned today, just practice all of that with a metronome and get used to switching between all of them. You don't have to use the patterns I gave. You can swap it out, do A minor then A or A then E major. You can mix and match whatever you think sounds nice, but as long as you're practicing with a metronome. If a metronome becomes too boring to work with, you can go on YouTube and type in drum metronome loop and 60 BPM. You can pick whatever BPM you want. The faster it is, the faster the track's gonna be, but stick to 60 when you're just beginning, like this. This is the end of lesson 4. I hope that you found a lot of value from it. If you've been practicing a lot, then I'm sure you've noticed that your fingers are absolutely killing you, and that's completely normal. We all go through it. This will last for up to like a month or something, but you just have to stay consistent with it. Eventually, you'll form calluses and your fingertips will be hard and you won't feel the pain anymore, but stay consistent. If it hurts too much, then take a break and practice the next day, but try and practice every day so that you can get all these chords into muscle memory and you don't have to think about it when you're switching to and fro between them, and it's just snappy like that. If you've found this video helpful, then share it with your friends. Please subscribe, like, comment, whatever you have to do. This will help my channel grow, and then, you know, we'll all win together, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, take care, keep practicing, stay consistent, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.